Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dustytron channel. And you might be wondering why I'm not wearing a Carolina Panthers jersey today. Well, it's because we're doing part 3 of our division previews, and we're talking about the NFC North. And the Lions, they're my third favorite team, and they're in this preview today, so let's hop right into it. But before we get started, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to follow us on my social media channels down below in the description. Alright, starting at the bottom of the division, we've got the continually self-proclaimed winners of the offseason, the Chicago Bears. So this is a perfect example when a team looks really good on paper and does some really flashy offseason moves, and it just doesn't pan out. You drafted Caleb Williams, you got Rome Odunze in the draft, you brought in Keenan Allen, you've got all these pieces, but their offensive line was one of the worst in the league.
Stop! He's already dead!
Now, looking into the numbers a little bit, some of those sacks were Caleb Williams' fault, but he's a rookie quarterback. He's not going to get rid of the ball right away. He needs better protection up front, and it just wasn't there last year. And it showed with paltry offensive numbers. They were the 32nd overall offense with the 31st pass offense and the 26th rushing offense. Caleb Williams is going to definitely need a lot more out of his running attack to feel more comfortable in that system, but that passing offense, there's got to be some strides this year. And who better to help with that than Ben Johnson, coming over from the Detroit Lions. The OC over there, now he's the head coach, and Ben Johnson has started to, already in the offseason, you can tell that he's forming the team the way he likes to. The Detroit Lions, they had one of the best offensive lines in the league, and what does Ben Johnson do? Well, first of all, he sees the offensive line as a major problem, and second of all, he wants to improve it. They got 3 guys in the offseason, and sure, I was just criticizing them a little bit earlier about big offseason names and whatnot, but when it comes to the offensive line, I think that's where it's like, okay, you do a signing there, it's a good player, sure, maybe it's a flashy offseason signing because it's like a decent name, but it's on the offensive line, which is the least flashy position in the league. They got Drew Dalman, center from the Atlanta Falcons, Joe Thuney, guard from the Kansas City Chiefs, and Jonah Jackson, guard from the Los Angeles Rams. I think that veteran presence is going to automatically upgrade this O-line, but how well they do might go into how well they can be a cohesive unit in Ben Johnson's system, and so we'll have to see how that plays out. But I think that alone, they were one of the worst offensive lines last year. They can kind of only go up from here. But I think the biggest thing for Ben Johnson, and probably a lot of the reason why he came over to the Bears, was being able to work with Caleb Williams. And what can he get out of Caleb Williams? He got a lot out of Jared Goff. I'm of the opinion that Goff is a serviceable starter in the NFL, but he's not like top tier talent. But if you put a really good system around him, he'll execute it well, and he did with the Detroit Lions. But Caleb Williams has the potential to be Patrick Mahomes. That's why he was drafted. And so Ben Johnson's going to have to get really creative and really tap into Caleb Williams' strengths. If he can do that, and Caleb Williams' sophomore season is phenomenally better, I don't think it'll be this year for Chicago, but next year with a full year in Ben Johnson's system, I think that the Bears could be a scary team next year. That being said, there's still the Bears defense, which was 27th overall last year, 16th passing, which is middle of the pack, but 28th against the run, and they really didn't do much in the offseason. They got Grady Jarrett, but he's 32 years old. He's kind of past his prime, coming off injury. We'll see if he adds anything. He'll be a veteran presence at least, but I think that's more of a flashy signing than really a substantive signing, but we'll have to see how that works out. But other than that, looking at the moves they did in the offseason, there's really not much on the defensive side that's notable. So maybe the offense takes some strides this year. I think there'll definitely be some speed bumps, but if at the end of the season you start to see Caleb Williams really get a lot more comfortable in the offense, kind of like you saw Bryce Young at the end of last year get more comfortable in Dave Canales' system, This team could be scary next year, but I think personally for me, they're kind of capped at 7 wins this year. I don't see them doing much better than that. All right, at number 3, I was flip-flopping on this positioning the whole time. I literally, right before this video started recording, I literally changed it. But at 3, I've got the Green Bay Packers. And I like a lot of the things that the Packers are doing. They're so hit or miss. They're either really hot or really cold, and there's not too much in between. But I think you can start talking about Matt LaFleur as one of the better coaches in the NFL, because you saw what he was able to do moving on from Aaron Rodgers, because there was a lot of talk earlier in his coaching career that a lot of his success was just because of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers kind of ran that team. But then the transition to Jordan Love happened, and it worked really well. And then you even saw it one step further last year when Jordan Love goes down, Malik Willis comes in, and he's getting productivity out of Malik Williams. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, maybe Matt LaFleur is on a different level in the coaching field. And I think a lot of his success can be tied to how much he values the run game and how heavily he utilized Josh Jacobs last year. Josh Jacobs, he is meant to be a workhorse back, and he got over 1,300 rushing yards and 15 plus touchdowns. Those are great numbers for him, and if he can sustain that in the running game, then the Packers are definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with, just because they're able to control the clock so well. Now, that being said, we got to talk about Jordan Love. He is erratic. When Jordan Love is on, he will be on point, throwing awesome deep passes down the field and just really being in rhythm, getting his receivers involved. But when he's not, he'll make the most boneheaded moves, terrible interceptions that you'll see. But to help out with that, to the surprise of Packers fans, they actually drafted a wide receiver in the first round this year with Matthew Golden. Green Bay is truly trying to build around Jordan Love in this point, and I think they should. His upside is really, really good. He just needs to be more consistent. But yeah, with the ups and downs of Jordan Love, they were the 5th overall offense last year, 12th passing and 5th rushing. I think that 5th rushing helped a lot, and they need to keep that going. If they're not able to get Josh Jacobs going as well as they did last year, things might be a little bit more dicey for the Packers. But I think it is on the defensive side where you're going to start to see a couple of cracks in the armor here. And I know Jair Alexander was hurt a lot last year, but I think they really are going to miss him. And Xavier McKinney's 8 interceptions, that's going to come down. That's not going to repeat. And even though Jair Alexander was hurt a lot last season, he's still one of the best corners in the league. And I feel like that Packers defense is just going to miss that, because they were the 5th overall defense last year, 13th against the pass, so a little bit above average, but I bet that would have been better if Jair Alexander was in more, and 7th against the rush, which is pretty good, and that might stay pretty stable, because I haven't seen too many moves on the defensive line front or the front 7, so their defense will probably be good, but take a step back a bit. But yeah, my 2 bullet points for the Green Bay Packers' success this year: Jordan Love needs to continue to progress and cut down on the turnover-worthy plays. And 2, they got to keep the running game going, and Josh Jacobs needs to help out with that. If either of those things aren't accomplished, there is not a lot of wiggle room in the NFC for error. The Packers were 11-6 last year and got the 7th seed, so if you lose a game here and there because of those 2 things I mentioned, you're probably not making the postseason. But yeah, solid defense and an offense that can perform very well with the top of the league, but then also has the possibility of underperforming, kind of has me torn, and I officially put them at 3 in my divisional rankings here in the NFC North. All right, at number 2, I didn't mention this before because it would have given away who it was, but literally before recording this video, I swapped these 2 teams from 2 and 3, and at number 2, I have the Minnesota Vikings. But to me, this is just a team that looks really good on paper, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I think the major question, and most people are saying this, comes down to, can J.J. McCarthy pick up where Sam Darnold left off last year? And I mean Sam Darnold when he was good last year, not the last 2 games.
Yeah! Curse! What?
But I think Kevin O'Connell instills an offensive system that works really well for quarterbacks, and it is possible, although J.J. McCarthy, he hasn't had many reps at all, just a couple of preseason reps, but for what it's worth, he looked competent in the preseason, so if he can do just enough and kind of be where Sam Darnold was at, because, I mean, let's face it, Sam Darnold is not a top-tier quarterback in the NFL. I mean, maybe the Seahawks paid him as, like, an average quarterback or whatnot, but I think they're going to come to regret that, because when he doesn't have a good offensive line, you're going to start to see a lot of those Sam Darnold mistakes come out. You saw it on New York, you saw it on Carolina, and I think you're going to see it on Seattle. But yeah, I think if McCarthy can work in this system, work with his elite wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. There is so much firepower there. And I've been surprised. I think Aaron Jones is super, he's getting towards the end of his career, and yet he still had a really good year last year. I think this might be his last workable year, but if they can get one more year out of him and have a decent rushing attack, then I think that this offense kind of picks up where it left off. They were the 12th overall offense last year with the 6th passing offense and the 19th rushing attack, which that could be improved upon, but maybe they don't need to if J.J. McCarthy can pick up and work with the receivers as well as Darnold did. That being said, I think 14-3 for this team was way overperforming last year, and I think they'll come down to earth a bit, but I think I was toying back and forth between the Vikings and the Packers, and I think overall they're just more consistent than Green Bay, so I put them ahead. I was really fighting with it, though. But on the defensive side of the ball, they got Jonathan Allen over from Washington, who's been dealing with some injury concerns, but he is a force up the middle. So if he can stay healthy, I think that really helps them. But their defense, especially the run defense, was really good last year. They were 16th overall with the 28th passing defense. That's a concern, but the rushing defense was second. Now, you could argue part of that was the rushing defense was so bad, so teams were focusing on rushing against them rather than passing against them. And you look at what they did in the offseason, and there wasn't really much done to improve the secondary, so that might still be a vulnerability, but if their offense can put up the offensive firepower that it did last year, it might not matter, but it might end up hurting them when they get into the tough months, the January months and the playoffs. But ultimately, yeah, the real change in this team is Darnold over McCarthy, and if McCarthy can be even better than Darnold, then this team has really good aspirations, and if the Lions tend to take a dip this year with losing some of their coaching talent, then maybe they could be vying for first again, but I still see them being second. And at number 1, it's Dan Campbell's Lions. Let's go bite a kneecap! All joking aside, I really think Dan Campbell has created a culture with this Lions team that his players really buy into. And I think we are going to see if that is ultimately what has shaped this team this year. It's going to be really interesting because Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, their offensive and defensive coordinators, left for head coaching positions in the offseason. So this is Dan Campbell's show now. And I really, especially after 2023 and having that unfortunate loss in the title game to the San Francisco 49ers, I was just really hoping that the Lions could have a great year last year, and it was looking that way until they just got injury after injury after injury after injury after injury after injury after injury on the defensive line. I mean, it was getting to be comical at a certain point. They got so many injuries on the defensive side of the ball.
It's over 9,000!
That offense, one of the best in the league, second overall, second passing, third rushing, but it could only do so much when their defense was getting decimated. But yeah, that defense, it was 20th overall last year, 5th against the run, but 30th against the pass. And yeah, there was just a lot of issues in their secondary last year. Terrion Arnold, he had a rough rookie season, hoping to see a lot more out of him. They lost Carlton Davis in the offseason, but kind of replaced him with DJ Reed. I think that might be a little bit of an improvement, and I really liked how I saw Kirby Joseph playing at the end of the year, but I still feel like this secondary is a liability. Aiden Hutchinson coming back. Hopefully you can come back at full strength. That'll help the pass rush significantly. But that secondary, it's concerning. But the offense, I think it's going to pick right up where it left off. Jared Goff feels chemistry and comfortable with his wide receivers. Jamison Williams got over 1,000 yards last year, had a really good year. Amon-Ra St. Brown was continuing to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. You've got the Sonic and Knuckles tandem of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. And Sam Laporta was great across the middle, one of the best young tight ends in the league. So I don't think this offense really takes a step back. I think what this ultimately comes down to is belief in the system and the culture. What is going to win out? And I gotta say, I believe in Dan Campbell's culture. And I kind of liken it to, I'm going to use the Panthers as an example, the 2015 Carolina Panthers Super Bowl team. They had an excellent team culture, and their talent wasn't that, they had a stacked defense, but their offense was not anything great on paper, especially after losing Kelvin Benjamin. So I really think there's a lot of power to be said about the players buying into the culture that's established. And Dan Campbell is just such a likable and personable guy. He has changed this franchise around, and I really think like maybe they won't be as dominant like 15-2 as last year, but I still think that they are going to win this division and impose their will on the other teams within it. All right, that concludes my predictions for the NFC North. To recap, I've got the Bears at number 4, the Packers at number 3, the Vikings at number 2, and the Lions, the Dan Campbell Lions, at number 1. So what do you think of my predictions? Feel free to comment in the comments below, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and tune in and follow the socials. We've got great content going up. You don't want to miss it. The social links are at the end of the video.